So today is the fourth day that we are going on with this Ajitasutta from the way to beyond, or parayanavagga of the Sutta Nipata, which is in one of the books in the Khuddaka Nikaya. So it's quite a very important chapter I have mentioned earlier as well. This is some of the earliest teachings of the Buddha and very authentic early teachings. And this particular sutta really covers the entire path, the problem, and all the way to the ending of the problem and what an enlightened being is like. So I'm just sort of taking my time to go through it quite slowly and also taking the opportunity to teach other suttas to understand the meaning even deeper. So I won't read out the earlier suttas again anymore, but just to recall very quickly, it started by this Ajita, one of the students, asking the question, what is the world obstructed by? Why does it not shine? And, what is the greatest fear in this world? So what is it smeared by and what is the greatest fear? And the quick answers by the Buddha were like the greatest obstruction is avidya or ignorance. And it is because of heedfulness, it was because of stinginess and negligence that it doesn't shine. And it is smeared with wishful prayer or strong longings and cravings, and suffering is its greatest fear. And by world, what we understand is the world of our mind, right? That's the most important world, not the planet Earth, but rather the world of our mind. And then we went into the second set of questions where Ajita is saying there are streams flowing everywhere. And how are they being blocked? What is their restraint? And how they come to a complete end? How are they stopped? So, and the Buddha says the streams are flowing everywhere, and they are blocked by mindfulness, and they're restrained also with the mindfulness, and they're stopped by wisdom. And last week we explained that what is meant by the streams. In this occasion, the streams are like the asavas, the outflowings of the mind. Yeah, so there are the mind flowing out into the sensual world. Yeah, all of these things, sight, sounds, taste, touches, and the mind objects, your fantasies, all of those things. The mind just goes out, flows out like a stream. So that is called karma asava, yeah, taint related to or outflowings related to sensual world. And there is the bhava asava, the mind outflowing into existences, yeah, our wanting to exist, want to experience and get rebirth, yeah, born again and again into various different classes of beings. And then there is Dittasava, that is mind outflowing based on your views. Yeah, this is really interesting. Amazing amount of views that we have taken up. So not really the right view. Right view is what stops these things. Right view is wisdom. But all the wrong views, wrong in the sense it's not like wrong as in a technical way, but wrong with its direction as in it takes you only in the direction of being born again and again and towards suffering and unsatisfactoriness, born of craving, born of this sense of self, born of delusion. So so the dittis, the views, all kinds of views that outflows. The anger comes out because of our views. Sadness can come, fear can come, anxiety can come. All of these things are also, based on views. And then there is the avidya. So all of this is included in avidya, as in ignorance, not understanding the baselessness of these things. Yeah, because everything is there when I exist. Yeah, the idea of me, a being, a sense of self. Yeah, that is a great delusion because it's only a phenomena conditioned by the past, not with any, control, but whatever we choose, our choice even is conditioned. So even though we feel a sense of self, sense of agency, it's a great delusion. It's hard to see in our normal state of mind, and that's okay. But this is the whole point of the spiritual path, is discovering that there is actually nobody here doing anything, and that things are not in my control, does not belong to me, is what we are going to understand later when we are ready, when the insights come. But in the meantime, all of these things, once there is a sense of self, when there is this greed, delusion is there. So that was the streams and then the flowing, and then we spoke a little bit about mindfulness, how mindfulness can stop. Yes, in the sense, not stop, but is a barrier. Yeah, it blocks, in the sense, streams from flowing out. So it is mindfulness that alerts us. Oh, now you have desire in your mind. You are about to, go into things, into craving, into sometimes trouble. And it's a mindfulness that tells us, oh, now you are going to act with anger. Anger has come up. And based on things that you have seen, you have heard, smelled, tasted, touched, and thought about. Yeah, it is with these things, it's with our interest that we flow out into these things. It's the mindfulness that reminds us what's going on and what's the right thing to, or right way to direct our mind. In a previous class, we also mentioned about being heedful. Yeah, what is being negligent or being heedful? So somebody who's negligent, they direct their mind in an unwise manner. That is when the hindrances are kept up. Whereas when we have mindfulness, we can direct our mind in a wise way, yeah, understanding causes and conditions. So you understand life, understand existence, understand what is going on. This reminds me of something I think once the Dalai Lama has mentioned, and that is, even the scientists collect data about mind, about life, about world, all of these things. Science constantly collect data. And also as practitioners, yeah, on the spiritual path, we too collect data. But what is the difference between the scientist and the spiritual seeker? Is the scientist collect data in order to control life. They think by controlling it, I can be happy. I can get what I want and I will be happy. As a spiritual practitioner, we collect data to understand life. When we understand life, we can make peace and live in harmony. Yeah? When we understand, instead of fighting, and we realize it's out of our control anyway, we saw that, how much we could fight with COVID and how little, how useful it or unuseful it was. Yeah, something small like that taught us a big lesson about these things. So this is the interesting thing. So once we sort of understand this, we can direct the mind instead of complaining, instead of worrying, instead of crying when things go the other way. We understand why. And we see the conditional process involved in all of these things, conditionality, dependent origination. That is the truth, that is the reality of these things, causes and conditions giving rise to things, yeah? When we see that, then we make peace. So this is where we are heading. So mindfulness is really important for this process to happen, yeah? Whenever we contact the world with our eye, we have a sense, experience of sight. When we contact the world with our ear, we have an experience of sound. All these experiences with our six sense bases. As we have an experience, if we don't have mindfulness, we get carried away. Yeah, the streams starts to flow. We go out with delusion and craving. They go hand in hand. Yeah, they go hand in hand. The delusion is the sense of self. I am, and my want. I want or don't want. Either way. Yeah, so we run towards things we like and run away from things we don't like. And as we do these things, either we make good karma, like good or not good ones. Either way, we make conditions for future lives. Yeah, this is what happens when we don't have mindfulness. So the job of the mindfulness is to restrain our senses. Yeah. So restraining the senses. So the word restrained in English is probably not the best word. It gives the wrong idea. Because when you say you restrained the eye, often people think it's about closing the eye and not looking at things. But it doesn't work for the ear anyway. Can you close your ear? You can't close your ear, nose, right? Tongue maybe, by eating, but it is more yeah. So even that you can't close. You have to eat. Yeah, we have to live. So it's not about restraint, it's not about, so maybe it's not even the right word then. It's more like developing, yeah? Developing the sense faculties, understanding, using these sense faculties in the right way so that these streams don't flow. We don't get carried away. Last week also we mentioned how these streams are not just streams, they're like white water, right? Really rapid, strong currents pulling us in different directions with our craving. So with mindfulness, we can sort of block them, yeah, but understanding what is going on. And I did mention last week about looking into the signs, like if it is something attractive that you're seeing, instead of giving attention to the sign of beauty, you give attention to the sign of repulsiveness or just the elementary nature of things, for example. So there is these ways of doing, various ways that we can do the restraining of the senses so that desire doesn't come up in the mind, ill will and negativity doesn't come up in the mind, even sloth and torpor doesn't come out, restlessness and worry doesn't come out, and doubt doesn't come out. So as a result of a sense experience. So this is about this sense restraint. And we can't do that without mindfulness. So the initial level of mindfulness is called Sati Sampajanya. In English, the translation, there are various different ways it's translated. I'm most familiar with Bhikkhu Bodhi's translation, which is called mindfulness and clear comprehension. So mindfulness in Buddhism is not only just you're aware, you're knowing what you're doing, why you are doing, how you are doing it. Yeah, so there's much more to it than just what's going on. You also know why and how. This is important. This is when it becomes interesting. This is when you can understand, do something about it. So clear comprehension is like that. So aspect of wisdom is there, yeah, together with awareness. So not just awareness itself. So I wanted to just read a sutta, which I have done before many few times, but it fits in here once more. And this sutta is from Anguttara Nikaya, Numerical Discourses, Book 8, Sutta number 81, called Mindfulness. In Pali, it is called Sati Sampajanya. Why it fits in here nicely? Because it shows the place of mindfulness, how mindfulness actually blocks the craving, the outflowings of the mind, and also the arising of wisdom, how it progresses into wisdom, and how wisdom makes a complete end to these streams, as if the streams just dry out. Yeah? So no longer there is a stream. So no more flowing. It's a short sutta. It can be explained in great detail, but I will just read out a section of it starting. It starts like this. Bhikkhus, when there is no mindfulness and clear comprehension, for one deficient in mindfulness and clear comprehension, the sense of moral shame and moral dread lack proximate cause. So moral shame or moral dread, there are again different translations. These are difficult to understand, or they might have different connotations. So it's really hard to find a really suitable English word for some of these Pali words. This is hiri and ottappa in Pali. So what this is that when we are about to do something, sometimes we know, oh, whatever we are going to do, this is not really good. This is actually, something that is, shame is probably too strong, but it's probably not going to have good result. It's unskillful. It leads you in the wrong direction. So it's not just shame, but also understanding the consequences. Yeah. So in the and then also so first of all you sort of feel, yeah, it's bad, it's shouldn't do it, because you understand it's not accepted, it leads to suffering, it leads to difficulty, it leads you head you in the wrong direction. And the next level is you also understand its consequences. So if it is an unskillful action, it will have unskillful results, your destination in the next life, where it's going to lead to the karmic consequences. And that is that fear, in the sense it's a wholesome sense of fear. Usually we see fear as a negative mind state. But this is the kind of fear that is actually positive. It is seeing the danger in doing certain unskillful thing and having that kind of fear. Again, it might not be fear, but seeing the danger rather, and then therefore you don't do it. So this is to just stop, like when you're about to do something that is unskillful, driven by your desires, driven by your anger, or even driven by the other source of fear, in the sense coming from sense of self and sense of greed, and from ignorance there is also fear. Yeah. So with whatever these kinds of emotions triggered by these, we are about to do something unskillful, and then we stop. So mindfulness is necessary, otherwise you don't know, right? So it is the mindfulness that alerts us, sort of stops us, tells us, hang on, just wait, if you do this, this is what's going to happen. And you feel a sense of conscience, yeah, sense of shame, or whatever right word is. So you feel it's not good to do. And also you recollect, or you sort of remember the teachings and realize, oh, this will be my consequence as a result. So you can sort of stop it at that point. So in this sutta, mindfulness is starting point, yeah, because this is shown as causes and conditions, yeah. So what gives rise to hiri and ottappa, or that fear and shame, is this base mindfulness. For somebody who does not have mindfulness and clear comprehension, it is not possible to have hiri and ottappa. And imagine what life would be like, right, if you don't have, and this is many people in the world, right? Many people have no awareness, no mindfulness, just go about in the day in the complete darkness, unaware, just following instinct and habits of the people, whatever it is, we're just driven. We are in that current, being taken in that current, or a tsunami wave, so to speak. And just as a result, you still do things that are probably, some may be skillful, some may be unskillful. So whatever unskillful, then of course we have to reap the consequences. So this is the danger. We can't say that I wasn't having enough mindfulness to stop. You still had intention, yeah. So you had intention, you did things with intention. So there was awareness of what you're doing, but you didn't understand the right mindfulness with wisdom to sort of show you what you're doing and how you're doing and why you're doing it, so you can adjust it or stop doing it. So this is how mindfulness stops the streams from flowing at that very, very starting point. But just to make and see how important that is, then it goes the sense of moral shame and moral fear, dread. Uh, that is the proximate cause for restraint of the sense faculties. Yeah, so it is not possible to say restrain our senses if we don't have that moral shame and moral fear. That's one of the best ways of, stopping. If you see as a result of what you see, desires are coming up or anger and ill will is coming up and you're about to do something, but it is that mindfulness that stops you and then you're able to restrain your senses. And then without the sense restraint, there is no virtuous behavior. Yeah. It's interesting. In some parts, you see sila coming first, but at other parts, you see sila or virtue after sense restraint. But this is probably a more powerful order, because when you think about sila or virtue as precepts, it's different to virtue that is a bit higher than that. So the basic precepts of not killing, not stealing, no adultery, no lying, and no intoxicants, they are like something that we have taken kind of a vow, or we have taken that determination to refrain from doing these things because we have taken this up and we do it. Sometimes it's even hard, so sometimes you might even have to exert a little bit of willpower. It's much better with wisdom power. But, either way, once you have taken up the precepts, you try your very best to keep it. So that's one level of virtue, one level of morality, very basic level. But even if you keep that, you can still hit somebody, right? Because the precept is about killing, not hitting. You can still frown at somebody. You can still raise your voice or be sarcastic, right? And then you can still end up hurting somebody. It's still not very skillful. So there is another degree of this, right? You can do lots of sensual activities without breaking any precepts. You can do so many other things that are unskillful without still breaking the precepts. But those will still have karmic consequences, right? So the next level comes through sense restraint. So this is when, the sila is very powerful, because it comes also with understanding, with mindfulness telling you the consequences, moral shame and fear is coming. And then you restrain your senses. So then you're virtuous naturally. Yeah, this is naturally. Then you keep your virtue. And this is true for many of you who have been practicing for a long time. Virtue, and this the really higher kind of virtue, is quite effortless. Yeah, it is effortless. You are being a good person in the sense actions of body, speech, and mind are good, in the sense they don't hurt and harm yourself or others or both. Yeah. So this is the next degree of that, and that comes after sense restraint. Very interesting. Yeah. And then it jumps that sila, that virtue, is the nutriment or the condition for giving rise to samadhi. Yeah, deep meditation. So this is really interesting, right? From sila goes straight to samadhi. Of course, there are many other steps, but sila is very important. And other places in the suttas you can see sila, that is virtue, and right view, ujjuka ditti, are the foundations of stronger mindfulness, right? Right mindfulness. And from right mindfulness comes right samadhi, that is deep meditation. So sila is absolutely necessary, and this is important to reflect because we are at a time, there are some people who go around and saying, sila is not important, morality is not that important, all you need is the knowledge of the Dhamma and a good technique to meditate and you can get enlightened. But that is not what the Buddha said, yeah? It is not. Sila or virtue is a really important foundation for deep meditation. And from there, it goes on to saying deep meditation is what allows you to see things for what they are. When the mind has clarity, when the mind is free from the hindrances. Hindrances are, in brief, the sensuality, will, negativity, sloth and torpor, restlessness and worry, and doubt. When these things are there in the mind, our seeing of anything is distorted. We see through these things. We see through desire, see through anger, see through in a depressed, down mind state or restless mind with panic and anxiety or with a lot of doubt. But when we have deep meditation, these hindrances have subsided. Yeah, the water is like clear, the mind is super clear, very, very bright, very sharp. Then you can see what's going on. You can see the conditioned nature of things and substantiality of everything. You know, things are really transient. Things are out of our control. What is this? Who am I? We understand there is not who am I, who do I take myself to be? You realize it's a bunch of conditions, yeah, just made up of elements, made up of feelings, perceptions. All these are just conditioned things. You see this not like knowledge. You actually seeing. Seeing is very, very powerful because when you truly see, not like when you hear and somebody else's knowledge, when you see, the way the Buddha explained this experience, it's like this, like, you can hear about fire, that it's hot, it can burn you, it'll be very painful, but that's only knowledge. That's somebody says you don't know really what it is. So you could still be attracted to, the beauty of the fire, like the fireflies. They're really attracted to fire. But the time that you have stick your finger in, like a little kid who didn't know, you burn a little bit and you realize, and then you just immediately take your finger away. You don't have to think anything about, oh, this is this or this is that. It happens very quickly. Same when you see, who I take myself to be, that it is only a bunch of conditions, these five aggregates, what we call, like the form, feeling, perceptions, mental formations, all of these things that we take to be myself, when we see is only a bunch of conditioned things that are glued together. Upadana is the Panchupadana Kanda, is the Pali word, is glued together with craving, with avidya, with ignorance. So when they are together, you see a being, a sense of self. But when you really clearly see, once you have the mind that is very powerful, free of hindrances, mind just turns away, nibbida happens, a disenchantment happens. It's unavoidable. So that is that seeing, clear seeing is the condition for mind to turn away from this. That is when the craving comes to an end, right? And the mind is then liberated, released, vimucchati, yeah? Liberation happens. So that is when the mind is free, and that is a fully enlightened being. This is like something really deep and powerful, said in a very brief manner, just to show the pathway, yeah, the effect of mindfulness blocking the streams, because it is the craving, yeah, the streams are the craving, the asavas, the outflowings, they're all based on craving. Craving is the problem. This is the second noble truth, right? The craving is what brings suffering. Craving is what creates us another existence. Rebirth happens because of craving, because of longing, desires. So it is that we need to block first. So mindfulness job is just only to block. Mindfulness is unable to really take it out, but it is the wisdom. But of course, wisdom is not separate to mindfulness. When you have wisdom, when you understand, when you see things, your mindfulness is really, you have heightened mindfulness, but mindfulness is providing kind of like the tool that is necessary. But wisdom is the light that arises, the insight that you get, that experience, that understanding of what's really going on. And when that understanding happens, when you realize, what the real world is, the truth, mind, the craving comes to an end. So that is why the wisdom aspect is shown as what stops. Yeah, so this is just a big picture of how mindfulness work. But I also want to do a little bit more since we have time. Another sutta, which is one of my favorite suttas, which I have mentioned here again. So usually my favorite suttas are repeated again and again. And this one is from Majjhima Nikaya, Middle Length Discourses, 152, the last sutta of the book, called Indriya Bhavana Sutta, or the development of the faculties. Now, this is interesting. Yeah, this is the development of the faculties. And so the faculties are the eye, the ear, the nose, the tongue, the body, and the mind. These are the 6 faculties. So these are the ones that we restrain to begin with, but better than restraint is the development. Yeah, so this is called Indriya Bhavana Sutta. So I might just read this sutta because I don't think I have really done this fully. I've always just maybe read out only just extracts and used it briefly. But today, since we have time and we are just delving deep into suttas, I might just read the whole sutta for this one. So this starts like this. Thus have I heard, on one occasion, the Blessed One was living at Kajangala in a grove of Mukelu trees. Then the Brahmin student Uttara, a pupil of the Brahmin Parasarya, went to the Blessed One and exchanged greetings with him. When this courteous and amenable talk was finished, he sat down to one side. The Blessed One then asked him, Uttara, does the Brahmin Parasarya teach his disciples the development of the faculties? Then the student Uttara said, he does, Master Gautama. Then the Buddha asked, but Uttara, how does he teach his disciples the development of the faculties? Uttara says, here, Master Gautama, one does not see forms with the eye. One does not hear sounds with the ear. That is how Brahmin Parasarya teaches his disciples the development of the faculties. And this is what, like I said earlier, many people think when they hear the word restraint, sense restraint, yeah? If that is so, the Buddha is saying, Uttara, then a blind man and a deaf man will have developed faculties, according to what the Brahmin Parasarya says. For a blind man does not see forms with the eye, and a deaf man does not hear sounds with the ear. When this was said, the Brahmin student Uttara, Parasarya's pupil, sat silent, dismayed, with shoulders drooping and head down, glum, and without a response. Because it's kind of obvious, right? It was really, really sharp, because this is not somebody who's developed, yeah, with the faculties. Then, knowing this, the Blessed One addressed the Venerable Ananda. Ananda, the Brahmin Parasarya, teaches his disciples the development of the faculties one way, but in the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties is otherwise. Now is the time, Blessed One. Now is the time, Sublime One, for the Blessed One to teach the supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's disciples. Having heard it from the Blessed One, the bhikkhus will remember it. So Venerable Anand does his job and gives an invitation for the Buddha to teach how the development of the faculties is to be done according to the Buddha's dispensation. Then listen, Ananda, and attend closely to what I shall say. Yes, Venerable Sir, he replied, and the Blessed One said this. Now, Ananda, how is there a supreme development of the faculties in the Noble One's discipline? Here, Ananda, when a bhikkhu sees a form with the eye, there arises in him what is agreeable. There arises what is disagreeable. There arises what is both agreeable and disagreeable. So manapa, amanapa, and manapa, manapa. That means as a result of just seeing something with your eye, yeah, either you like it, or you hate it, or you're neutral about it. That's what this is about. He understands thus, there has arisen in me what is agreeable, or there has arisen in me what is disagreeable. There has arisen in me what is both agreeable and disagreeable. So here again, so for somebody who is practicing, it is the mindfulness, right? The mindfulness is what is doing this job. So you have the mindfulness says, hey, you've seen something, and as a result of that seeing, you have desire come up, or you have ill will come up, or you are in pain, or you are experiencing pleasure, or just a neutral mind state. So the mindfulness is what sort of informs us what has arisen, because we think that this is, nothing much, but how many people in the world go about in their day not really realizing this, right? Very many people are got very dull faculties. They don't realize minds are pretty depressed, quite low energy. They don't understand. They're not aware. They're not together to realize, not enough mindfulness to even understand, unless they're really strong, like really strong pleasurable things or really strong painful things, then people might realize. But some people take a long time to understand what is going on, where they are at, what is the result of this experience. So mindfulness just reminds or sort of alerts you, okay, this is what is going on. Then with mindfulness, the person understands. So this is somebody who's already like well practiced with some wisdom faculty, but now continuing to develop this wisdom, right? Because now they're fully aware, instead of getting carried away with the pleasurable experience, or carried away or running away from the painful, or being completely ignorant in the darkness with the neutral experience. Sometimes neutral experiences are great. Some neutral experiences can be very dangerous. Yeah. So whatever it is, so instead of that, you are now aware, but you bring up real awareness into, but that is conditioned. Yeah, whatever feeling. So whether it is, because there are only three kinds of feelings, like when it comes to feeling: pleasurable, painful, or neutral. So all feelings are conditioned, gross, dependently arisen, right? So this is Sankatan, Olarikan, Paticca Samuppannan are the Pali words. So condition, how are they conditioned? Feeling comes because of contact, like Passapachya Vedana in the dependent origination. So that is how. So when the eye meets with attention, meets an object, a form, when eye consciousness arises, that is called contact. When you make a contact of sight, then you have a resulting feeling. And that resulting feeling based on sight could be pleasurable, painful, or neutral. But it only remains there, that feeling only remains there as long as that contact is there. When that contacts come to an end, that feeling also comes to an end. often we don't pay enough attention to see the ending of that feeling because we are already into the next contact and the next feeling. Yeah, we jump from one to the other. So we see the arising of anything, the feeling, but never see the ending of the other thing. So this is when you start seeing, when you slow down, when you have more mindfulness, when you have more clarity in the mind, you, even as you go about after good meditation, you see these things, as you eat, as you watch, as you speak, as you listen. With everything you see, you are more aware and you see it's only conditioned. But for me right now, I can remind you, how your feelings have changed in the past. Often what I mentioned repeatedly is, you may have had an angry day, like because of somebody or something that has happened. And there was a certain kind of mental contact that was happening, way of thinking that was happening. And the moment, somebody that you love and care comes and gives you a hug, or, says something nice, gives you a cup of tea, shows some affection, immediately, different kind of contact, and the previous has finished. This has happened, but sometimes we haven't paid enough attention. So throughout the day, when you start seeing with mindfulness, yeah, when you have a little bit more mindfulness, this is natural. After a while, it happens. As you go through your day, you see, feel how you make contacts, how as a result of that contact, the feelings arise, how they depart and you make other contacts. And then you start to see, you don't get so fooled by these feelings. Feelings are very, very transient, insubstantial. Yeah, cannot hold on to. They are just like, the wind on the trees or the clouds in the sky. They just passes by. They only remain there as long as you give attention to. And you can't keep attention too long, because that's what normal undeveloped human minds are like. They just jump, like this is the monkey mind. They jump from one to the other. It's excited, interested. The craving is like this. Craving is called this very word. Delighting here, delighting there. Tatra tatra binandini. Yeah, is the word. Delighting here, delighting there, jumping here, want to eat this, want to listen that, look at here, think about this constantly. So with that, our feelings constantly change. We just have kind of a memory, and a very diluted memory, which is why we have fear of pain, fear of this, fear of that, and concerns about this, and thinking when I get, I'll be happy for forever after. But feelings are constantly changing, cannot hold on to. So our value, the value that we give into these feelings, the pleasure or pain or whatever the experiences with the sensual world, sort of get a perspective, a better, good, realistic understanding about what it is. So it is conditioned. Yeah, it is just made up by your contact, as long as you contact. And that feeling is gross compared to what you will see in a minute. Yeah, the Buddha is now encouraging us to compare it to something else, compare to something else. This, whatever you call as pleasurable, is pretty gross, or larika, dependently arisen. Yeah, so it is paticca samuppanna. So conditioned here is that coming together, made up of things. Dependently arisen means that it has a chain, a sequence of things that give one after the other, rise into this. So contact is the immediate one before feeling. So, and then the reflection goes. So to remind again, so you have a feeling, you, as a result of what you're, with the sight or sound or any one of those things, and you're aware of whether it's pleasurable or painful. Then you bring into mind with wisdom. This is the wisdom, mindfulness, understanding, whatever it is just conditioned. It is made up. It is gross. it is conditioned, like it is dependently arisen. But this is peaceful, this is sublime, that is equanimity. Yeah, this is the mind that is very stable, very peaceful, the mind that is steady, the mind that doesn't go anywhere. So equanimity. So the comparison. So in order to do this comparison, however, we need to have some experience on equanimity. Now, equanimity is a very high bar to cross, because the highest form of equanimity is in the fourth jhana, that is a really high level of deep meditation. So the more you have deep meditation, the easier it becomes to make sense of the sensual world. But in the meantime, as we're starting off, we can use even whatever level of peace that we get in our meditation. Even before the Dhamma talk, we sat for about half an hour. Even if your mind became some level of peace, yeah, some level of stillness, yeah, mind that is still steady, it has some level of equanimity. Maybe not the very developed kind, but you know how beautiful that is compared to a mind constantly running, shaking, moving, desiring, fearing, anxious, compared to all of that, the mind that is still is sublime. So we can start from there, and that itself is helpful to sort of develop our faculty so we don't get carried away so much with things we see. We don't get carried away so much with things we hear. We have a good perspective on these things. You realize these things are not so valuable. The value that we have given goes down. So you're devaluing sense experiences, the five external senses, yeah, eye, ear, nose, tongue, and body, which is a lot, because this is where we run after. This is what keeps us from getting into deep meditation. The one thing that stops us from getting into the first jhana is the sensual world, our interest in the sensual world, the cravings towards the sensual world. That is what pulls us. These are the streams that we've been talking about in the Ajitasutta, the streams, the outflowings, the pull that we can feel when we close our eyes, yeah? So that is why we use like an object like breath or some kind of still meditation object to just bring the mind to one peak. Yeah, chitta sekagata, by using just one very simple object, especially grounded in the body. We can also use things like metta or Brahma Viharas as well. But whatever it is, we use something to train our mind to, instead of going out, to come to stillness. And then we can see then that is when we get more power over these things. Then our faculty starts to develop, yes, slowly. So that is equanimity. The agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, and both agreeable and disagreeable that arose cease in him, and equanimity is established. So this is a way to calm the mind, yeah? So when you see that these things, the grasp is loosened, we don't hold on to these things. This is when we can let go of these things, yeah? So even if you got angry, the anger subsides very quickly. You got some desires come up, the moment you do this reflection, the mindfulness is strong and the mind inclines towards equanimity, the desire goes down. Fear, all of these things. Of course, it doesn't happen overnight. These are to be developed slowly as you do it. Over a period of time, slowly, the mind learns to let go of these very sticky things and instead incline towards peace, towards equanimity, yeah, towards that kind of direction. So this is how we slowly restrain the senses. This is how we slowly build up or develop the faculties. So just as a man with good sight having opened his eyes, and might shut them, or having shut his eyes might open them, like a blinking. Yeah, very quickly you can blink your eyes. So too concerning anything at all, the agreeable that arose, the disagreeable that arose, the both agreeable and disagreeable that arose, cease just as quickly, just as rapidly, just as easily, and equanimity is established. So once you have developed and cultivated your faculties, that is what the Buddha is saying. Yeah, in the beginning it will take time because things are sticky, but as the insight grows, you understand, oh, it's only this much. That's what you come to. This sense experience is only this much. Why am I so bothering about it? Why am I so running after it? Why am I so excited about it? Or why am I so annoyed about it? Or whatever it is, it just drops. It's only that much. Yeah, it's only that much happens very quickly, is what the Buddha is saying. As quickly as a blink of an eye, you can just reach equanimity. It'll be wonderful, isn't it? We reach that state. But as you cultivate this slowly, slowly, and it becomes more when you actually have deep meditation. So it's a high bar to reach, but it is possible. You get there also doing that. This is called the Noble One's discipline, the supreme development of the faculties regarding the forms cognizable by the eye. So unfortunately, I won't go any further. In the same way, there are similes to the ear. The ear, it's like snap of a finger. Yeah, that quickly you can do. That's the only difference. With what's the next one? To an odor, it's like raindrops. Yeah, really quickly. Raindrops on a lotus leaf roll over, just like that. An odor just can go so quickly. And for a flavor, it is like somebody just spitting out very quickly. You can spit out something. And tangible body things are like you put some water onto a hot pan and it evaporates that quickly. It sizzles and evaporates, something like that. So it's just the simile that is different. But the idea is what you do is the same. Yeah, you get an understanding about your sense experiences, the feelings, and how they come about, the conditionality about them. Yeah, the sankatang or larikang, paticca samuppanam. It's really nice for anybody who likes Pali, who feels more emotion, like emotionally you feel the idea. Then doing this in Pali is also very powerful, but it has to make sense. Like I really enjoy when I say Sankatang o Larikam Paticca Samuppanna, Etang Santang, Etang Panitang, Yadidang Upekka. Yeah, when you understand these words and when you feel it, it's quite nice, but you can do it in English as well, or whichever language you are familiar with. So this is really nice, and this sort of shows how, like somebody who is enlightened, yeah. So in the seeing, there's just the seeing. In the hearing, there's just the heard. In the sense, just the sensed, yeah. And in the cognize, just the cognize. It doesn't go any further than that. You just see and the streams don't flow. There are no streams. This is for an enlightened being, right? You hear, there's nothing to flow. All water has evaporated. No craving, no sense of self. So there is just contact and giving rise to feeling. But as a result of that feeling, you don't crave and create karma as a result in that way. That can give karma, that can give rise to future rebirth. That is, yeah, there will be something created, but it is not giving rise to, because it is not coming from delusion or craving. So it's kind of different to this. So this is an enlightened being. So this is the ditte ditte mattang, sute sutta mattang, mute muta mattang. Yeah. So this is the Bahiya Sutta or Malunkyaputta Sutta, which are very powerful suttas, but this is how, when the senses of faculty, cultivated, it goes there. But this sutta has 3 steps. I only read the first step, which is the step before somebody is already a stream winner. So before stream winning. So you need still deep meditation. When this works really powerfully once you start deep meditation, and you can develop your faculties quite strongly. And then there is the practice for somebody who is a stream winner, who is now practicing to become a fully enlightened being. And then there is also how a fully enlightened being's faculties are, but they're not doing that to achieve anything. They have completed the job, but just to live peacefully in the world is Ditta Dhamma Sukha Viharana, it is called, just for the the pleasure, or to live peacefully and harmoniously. They have also a way of understanding which is powerful. Maybe I will talk about it later in another session, because they are nice to understand as well. So sorry, I mentioned very little about the Ajitasutta, but it is more of understanding the power of mindfulness, because mindfulness is very misunderstood in the current world. It is very popular, like mindfulness is big, yet it is also misunderstood. And probably I would say like kind of misused as well. And then it will not get you the right results. So it is important to understand how the Buddha taught mindfulness and how that leads in the direction of peace, ending of suffering. So this is why I'm taking more time, and there's no hurry. We are just here, so we can take all the time in the world. No deadlines, no exam to pass. So we'll take our time to go through the Ajitasutta as we see fit.